Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, man. More important than that.
We do, depending on how you want to do it. If you want to use like Inspire, then you don't. But if you're going to be doing this, then it is how you have it currently set up. You do need to have it with
I got the A squad.
Well, the reason why you have that class, the two view thing, is so that you can tell it which thing you want to search for. Spotify, the Open database, bands in town, or something else.
Oh, every single Ask Chris.
Concert this, and then so I'm open for hits.
Joe's all on Saturday. I was like, no, I'm just reading.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. You wrote everything right. You're doing everything fine.
I'm thinking First Avenue in school as somebody was stealing pants. How would you steal pants from Walmart? It's not that bad. But it's Walmart. It's getting hot, and then the guy.
Were they wearing them out?
Well, I don't know how, but they had this their police officer, and the police officer was grabbing him, and then he said the guy got away, and so then the police officer snatched him up against the wall, and then the guy squeezed his ball. The police officer like, whoa, beats him up.
This is all recording.
Yeah, like the guy got beat up. Yeah, and then he grabbed his ball.
And look at this, the funny thing is this guy
He's like smiling, like, oh yeah, Jesus after grabbing my ball. I totally understand.
All right, good evening. Let's go ahead and start the class. Man, I had to pause just to hear the whole story.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't miss that.
Interesting.
All right, so today, what are we going to be doing today? Usually, remember, like day 3 of every week, we kind of do a mini project. We haven't done this for last week. So today, that's the agenda for today. We are going to do a mini project, and this will cover your Node.js, calling APIs from Node.js, constructors, everything. Okay, you're going to build an application from ground up. I'll show you the solved version and how it runs. And then you will start from the architecture part. First of all, take like few minutes, 10 minutes to draw the architecture first, understand what needs to be done in the application. And then we will code that application in parts. Okay. I've divided this application in like 4 parts, and we will code that out. And then before the end of the first part and the second and third and fourth, I'll start coding. So if any group is stuck, you can look it up. The architecture, you guys will draw the architecture, then I'll share my thoughts on it, and then I'll be coding according to the architecture that I show you guys. If it is different from what I have, you guys can keep continuing using your architecture. Okay, we'll go through that in a minute. Okay, then we have our homework. I think Nick can introduce the homework towards the end of the class, and then we have a checkpoint for Node.js. Okay. We do have a last exercise for callback. When we get towards the end of the class, I'll explain what to do with that one. Okay, for now, a small project. And before we begin, I will use my favorite theme generator. And this time we have exact, oh no, I thought we have exact number of groups. All right. Let's see. These are not enough. Let me make one more group. Okay, that's pretty good. Kyle and Andrew can do it together. Okay. So these are the groups. Let's go ahead, get up, get in the group, and then I'll introduce the exercise to you guys. So the next person will join Kyle and Andrew.
boom. We're in the front.
No. Oh yeah. I think I had a more number of people in some groups, so I changed it. This random doesn't seem very random.
Doesn't seem, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a random.
It is very random. I don't know what you're talking about. And actually, you've never been in a group together.
Sure. Yeah. I can't see anything from this.
The project groups we have.
Oh, not project group, but these many projects. You have it? Okay.
Actually, I'll come over to where you are because there's nobody there. Oh, you can throw all that on the ground. Oh, sorry. You know what? I can grab
Mr. Chocolate.
Yeah.
George, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you? Good.
Ready for Thursday?
I'm so embarrassed.
Alright.
That's a nice way to put it. I'm pretty nervous, bro. I've been my boss has been helping me with, with behavioral questions. So,
Okay.
Like an hour today, we just did behavioral questions.
That's good.
Yeah, there's stuff done there to help prepare, freak out.
We have IT. Listen. Oh. You do? All in the same class, man. Stand right there talking to me. Oh, I just thought you didn't pay attention. Because I know. We were talking to you, just
All right, everybody in groups? Yeah, looks like. All right, so here's what you guys are going to be doing. So we are going to be creating an application that searches for actor and a TV show. Okay, the application will run like this. If I say node, let me make it a little bit so you guys can see it. So if I say node and my file is called CLI. Anybody know what CLI stands for? Command line interface. So it basically means this is my interface of my application. It's a command line. Okay. So I say node CLI JS, and then I have two commands: show and actor. Okay. So if I type in show, I can give the show name. Let's say. Okay. There's an API call, and I'll show you the API. It goes through an API, gets this information back, and kind of displays on the console. Okay. So I said node CLI, and the first command is show, and then the show name. Okay. That's the first thing your application should do. The second thing your application will do is search for an actor. Okay, same thing. I'm going to type in node CLI JS. This time I'm going to say actor, and then you can give a name. Okay, so it goes, searches details for that actor. Okay, you saw there are spaces. You'll have to handle that. Okay, the third thing is, so same thing, actor, and then actor name, node CL. Okay. The next thing, the last thing it should do, it should also log whatever you are searching. Okay. So since I searched these two things, if you see, it created a log.txt. So you're going to use the fs module, and it should log whatever the search results are. Okay. So you see, first I searched the show name, and then actor name, and subsequent search, anything that I searched should be adding it to the log.txt. Okay. You can design it however you want. You see the dash over, this kind of separates each logs. If you want to use similar format, you can do it. But each log should be logged over there in your log.txt. Okay, so you are using Axios module, of course, to get the information from our API. Okay, and then you're also using your FS module to log anything that has been searched. Okay, so these two modules. Let's see if there's anything else. I think these are the two ones. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to Slack you out the API that is being used. This is the API, and this is a free public API. What it means is you don't have to sign up or you don't have to do anything about it. Okay, you can just look at the documentation, and then it's actually slash API. Yeah, that. You can just go look at the documentation and start using the API. You don't have to again sign up or do anything about it. Okay, so you are going to use this API. From this API, you need two API calls. One searching the show name and the second searching the actor name. Okay, just two of those. So you will have to go through the documentation and kind of figure out what each one is called and how to use each one of them. Okay? All right, questions? Everybody understand what the goal of this exercise is? Okay, these are the two commands that should run. The API call I already slacked you out. These are the modules looks like you will be using. If there's anything else that you come across, please go ahead and use that. But from high level, I think these two should be sufficient enough. Okay. Now with this exercise, I would say please use your modules and constructor information. Don't cram everything up in just like one file and make it possible. Okay. Try to see how you can divide this information, how you can create different modules, and then create that application. Okay. Any questions before we start the first phase? Good. All right. So in the first phase, I don't want you to start coding. Take 10 minutes and come up with a architecture diagram. What I mean by that is it should have some boxes. It should outline what your modules will be and how are you going to kind of use these boxes or your architecture diagrams and how these will be communicating. Something like this, okay? And these modules, these boxes that you come up with are going to become your module names. This is what you're going to code eventually. Okay? For example, node CLI. What is CLI? It's a JS file, right? Eventually it's a JS file. So that's kind of one module already. Right? So you will have one module called CLI. And then the CLI is going to be communicating with some other module or some other module depending on what you come up with. All right? So this is kind of hint already tells you that, okay, you need one module, of course. And this is going to be your main module, right? This is the one that you call and runs your application. But behind the scenes, you can cram everything in CLI, but don't do that, okay? Now think about how this runs and kind of divide it and see how many modules you can come up with. Again, the requirement is this should run, and you should also be logging every search. Okay, so you are showing it on the console also, right? On your console over here, and then you are also logging it. Show it on your console and also log whatever you're showing on the console. Okay? All right, so let's take 10 minutes and then we'll discuss and I'll show you what I have and then we'll discuss what architecture you guys came up with. All right?
Thank you. It's just a line. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it and you can search my people, my show. We're doing casts. I mean, like I said,
looking at the appendix.
We guess we do have to set up
Yeah, so actually, what should be
So we are, well, I kind of missed out, but I went out to eat. From what I understand, what I understand is you're going to be making, yeah. What I
So yeah, basically it's like like how you have that part, but it's just like oh yeah, so it's like fs.read file, and then so whatever file.
Yeah, show start. Right here shows you
Show lookup. Text file.
What is that?
So, yeah, so like, well,
Yeah, we did like 3 exercises. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, it's not too difficult.
Yes.
I mean, it's like the last. So, right.
Different files will be the different modules. Are we exporting our module
Yeah, I think might be easier to have
Oh yeah. Shit, you mom and Russian. Even though I'm Russian. So, Danielle, yes, as far as having doing on-site files, like you're talking about, obviously the CLI, like using the Axios, and then also the FS, like the file. It says that, well, what, I guess, on a single source shows what else you because like,
So by modules, I mean different files. You can cram everything in CLI.js. But that's not really good. Exporting.
Yeah.
It's
like it was like the
Oh, okay. I thought you meant, for some reason, I got taking modules
I mean,
we just like separate files. Yeah, I mean, I understand that.
with the signature oh no, modules, you know what I mean? When you create the profile,
It's undefined.
oh really?
It shows that
same
Okay.
It's undefined, which example will be returned by this.
Let me clarify.
Be sure you're matching.
Alright, by different modules I mean different files, right? I don't like to call it different files, but you know people are getting confused. That's what I meant. Okay, not like Axios and FS and different modules.
Fuzzy algorithm.
Wait, so is that still, that's still different modules, right?
Oh yeah, you're going to use these third-party
Yeah,
modules.
like what I said is still true as well.
Yeah, you're going to use different
Where
modules.
like those are also different modules in the context I was talking about.
Right.
Those
Yes.
shows, okay.
Yes.
Just yeah, so it's
Oh, it's the example that I showed you. So it's it's like embedded game. So remember I said you are no CLI on the no, not right now.
Well, I know, but that's.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This one.
Oh yeah, it's kind of similar.
Yeah, well, we're using that, or what's the other one? Screencastify?
Oh yeah.
That's what I was using.
Okay.
Where you can screencast.
Nicer than
So I mean,
process not
there's
not slice.
CLI file,
Read,
log, text
I get it. All right.
So I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess you can like so for the keys, I just use on a personal band to
Requires student.
yeah, because I put every that sounds bad. Inside of
Integrated function. Yeah.
So
yeah,
my
yeah,
this
so
one actually has
function to search for.
So I remember last week I did a case, so it just said no,
so like I have
and you'd say that if else as well. If after,
Oh
yeah, it's a lot.
Well, it logs everything.
you just need to.
Everything you search, yes.
Yeah.
Wait, who's writing that script?
Like I think it's more straightforward.
It's a gift. That's
Ooh,
Ooh, magic.
Ooh, it's haunted. I was like, oh, what the? I only slept 3 hours last night. This is tricky.
Like,
Yeah, it logs everything on the log.txt. You don't see that, but in your folder you will see log.txt.
Yeah.
So once you do that, then technically like push onto
basically anything at the end of any.
So what is it? 4 different files. I don't know what it is. I just count that.
It's like if.
So
What?
Yeah, that's 5.
Oh, what if?
Yeah,
What are we trying to have happen? If enter? I mean,
No, so like.
Again, you guys are talking about coding. I just want the high level architecture
we have to look at
that this
picture.
box is going to be.
It goes there to there, there to there.
Okay.
It goes back to there, then it goes back into our command line interface.
No, I'm just talking.
Beautiful.
Let's
You
see
draw
your-
it?
Yeah, draw it on the board and. Yeah.
Got this Mamarosha. Let's go, Putin.
Yeah, that really cute. I remember last night you go by saying, he's like, who's from Russia?
You know what? So we have our.
Alright, so Joffrey is drawing his architecture.
There's our command line interface. And then it's going to send it to Axios. Can I just do AX?
Okay, is that what you're going to call your module? Axios?
Yes.
Why do we have to name it something? It's Axios, that's what we're using. We have to give it a fancy name.
No, yeah, so by module I mean it will be a different file, right? And
Oh.
we're going to use module.export.
Oh, well then never mind. Let's not write this down.
Okay. You are actually.
They didn't hear you when you were explaining the whole thing to me.
Oh, yeah.
I was not here. Roll up. Let me roll in there.
Sorry.
I wasn't thinking about naming them. I forgot about that. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Actually, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you just have
Yeah, but I
to.
don't want to. Okay, do we want to give it a fancy name, guys? Let's call it.
No, you can call it Axios. I was just asking, is that what you're going to call the module?
Well, you threw a wrench in my whole system. Okay.
It was a question.
All right. I'm back. Okay, give me the pen.
Alright.
Boom.
So you're calling it
We're calling
Axios?
Axios. It's fine. So then, that's whatever you put in, you know,
Okay.
the show name, and then that is going to go over to our wonderful. We're going to call it TV Maze module.
TV what?
TV Maze.
TV maze. Okay.
I was here.
So then, boom. Then here goes into here.
Okay.
This one, it's like, I think it was like search for just name, was just
Right,
basic.
that's okay. I'm not worried about it. Okay, now what about the logging this? Where is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm I don't know where that would happen. I mean, I'm just like, I guess it happened from here. Because, like, the data has to come from here to here.
Okay.
And then it goes back here. And once it gets here, then that goes over to the
So if we went 2 against like each other, it would like basically.
so now so that would come back like.
So you would like.
Where is the console going to happen? Like, where would you print out everything console logs? Would that be on the same part?
Yeah, that would come. So when everything comes back here, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so when the data gets pushed back,
It was like
Here.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what would the if statement be? Like, what are we ending it on? Like, if what is happening to make it log over there?
So see, like something could be changed to kind of.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Oh, well, that's a good start.
Yeah, and that's just, I don't know. It seems like semi straightforward with the flow.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some parts that kind of.
Right. No, that's a good start. We'll discuss. We'll see if somebody else has a better idea, and then.
Never.
Oh, this is actually pretty close. You just have to change few things.
That's week on.
All right.
Guys, thanks for supporting me while I stood up there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at the architecture. So this team, Joffrey and his team has this architecture. From what I understand, CLI module will be the main starting point, and then he has two more modules. One is called Axios, I think, yeah, and then the second one is called TV Maze. All right, that's the module. That's his module. So don't confuse this with this one, because we are talking about our file name. So they're saying they're going to name their file Axios.js and TV Maze. I don't recommend, but that's fine.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll get there. And then the question was, what about the logging part? Where would you log the information, right? Okay, this is good. So see the flow. So I type in this thing. I say node CLI show and a show name, and the control goes to Axios, right? Information. You are parsing all the information. The parsing is done over here, I suppose, right? And then you pass the information to your module called Axios, and then Axios calls a different module called TV Maze. Okay, so this is the API actually that you guys are using, and then this should respond back to Axios, and Axios responds back over here, and then CLI also logs the information. Okay, so any other group who kind of want to modify this and show a different implementation if they have? What do you guys come up with?
I mean, that was basically it, except, I mean, the only other thing we have extra is just the package.json.
Package.json.
But obviously that's going to be in that.
Yeah, we'll
No
come
matter
to
what.
that. So the things I have written over here is that I would prefer you guys use export.modules, of course. Use your knowledge about package.json because you are using this this module Axios. So make sure you do a package in it so that whatever, it's a good practice to use it. And that's what I'm going to be doing. Constructor to create an object with the information. All right, that's the recommended things for you guys to use. But so you guys have a CLI. What's the what module? What are you guys calling it? Do you have two, or you have one, or three?
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I'm definitely not going to call it accident.
Sorry, Joffrey.
I don't want to get too much confusion in there, so it's an axe. I'm not sure
Axe.
what else.
Okay, the module called Axe.
Axe.js. Sure, Axe.js. I mean, it's going to be basically a similar like system.
Okay.
We're pulling it from. I don't know if we need two files between
Okay.
the Axios and the TV Maze, so I think we might just put one
Good.
full thing together.
Okay.
But
What's
then
the reason? It's good. It's actually good, but what's the reason?
I just want to do it like that.
Right.
I
We're
honestly
gonna
don't.
call it TV Maze. Yeah.
That's why.
It's
still
confusing.
Yeah.
it is X.
Axe. Okay. Matt, did you have anything to add?
Well, so we split into two modules, one for show and one for actor.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we combined those two into one, but then there's two side by side.
Okay, so you have CLI and then you have actor and show like this.
Yeah.
Okay. And then where does the logging happens?
Yeah, we could do
Over here. So yeah, CLI does the logging part also. Okay. Why not do it over here since you already have that information?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We're gonna go back and forth.
I'm just asking.
That's what we're discussing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I agree. Right.
I'm just asking because at this point you already have the information, right? Might as well log it. I mean, this might work. Also, give it a try, but you are kind of pushing it towards it, but might work.
Talk things out. And, you know, other people are like,
Chess. So Chess is saying over here, if you do it, you are doing it twice. That's a good thing also. That over here you're doing it once, over here you're doing it twice.
Right,
Right?
what is that?
So this one is the logging part. So Matt and his team came up with this design, and I was saying where you're going to do the logging part, and they said we are going to do it over here. I said you already have this information at this point, right? Actor information. Why not just log it over here? So Ches is saying that at this point we have to do it twice. That I have to log over here also, and then somebody calls show, then I have to do it over here also. So why not do it just once over here? So that's a good argument too for that architecture.
I like that. But if you put
Right.
them both
Couldn't you
together.
just have both modules, the actor and the show module, push into the same mod?
Phew, nice. So that's also just have one module that has both actor and show, and then do the logging also, right? Why? Because these are just basically, if you look at the code, it's two functions, right? You'll be having two functions, and one function will be find actor, find show, and this could be part of this module, right? And then you are just calling these two functions from this CLI and logging the information, also consoling that information over here, all right? And then and that should be it. Again, you guys see there are different ways to. Did you guys have anything different? Kind of curious.
No, we've been talking just back and forth. Like we
Okay.
started off with the two separate files, but then the point was made. Somebody was talking about TV maze, that was the single API. So we talked about moving to that, and then
Right.
as well as the single log file off of that new file or off of this file.
Right, and Kyle also says a good point that TV Maze API is just like one umbrella API. Within that, it has two different ones, but basically you are just calling one. So the main URL would always be, the domain would always be the same, right? It's not like you have two different APIs. If I had two different ones, then I could consider, okay, maybe I can separate these out. Because if, for example, if this one kind of goes down, my whole code doesn't go down, I can say, oh, this API is down, but this one is working, something like that. Okay. What about you guys, Ali and team? Did you guys have anything different? What do you guys come up with?
If we do the same one with the actor and the show searches.
Okay. Okay.
Basically the same. We didn't have the Axios in the TV Maze
Okay.
file as well. We had those separate, just because we don't know any better.
Okay, so your kind of was similar what Joffrey was suggesting, two different, and that might work. I mean, if you guys want to go with that approach, give it a try and see if that works.
Yeah.
Or if it gets too complicated, because now you have two extra modules, not extra, but now you have three modules, right? And then you have to make sure these all are communicating well,
Perfectly.
especially with async process, that when it comes back, then you have the information. So we kind of make sure that works. But what
Oh, you're still trying to do that?
what I'm going to follow is this similar approach that the groups over here and Michael suggested, Chess said, Matt, they kind of come up with this one. So I have a CLI module, and then let me call this TV, right? I have a TV module, which is going to have two functions, find actor, find show, all right? And you will see when it comes to coding, I'm going to export this module into my CLI, okay? And this CLI is going to call find actor or find show, depending on what the request is, right? It's going to call this API using Axios, and then it's going to log or console everything, okay? The last thing was, you will see I'm going to have a constructor for this module, the TV module, is going to be a constructor with two methods, right? And then I'm going to instantiate, I'm going to call this constructor in my CLI using the export modules, and then I will have two functions, and I'm going to call tv.findActors, tv.show, tv.findShows. Okay? Again, let me go through this one more time. Again, if you guys already have something in mind or architecture, you guys can follow the same one. What I'm going to have is, again, two modules. You will see a CLI, and then you will see another module. Let's call this TV. Okay, and this will have two functions, basically find actors and then find shows. Okay, so I'm going to instantiate this. What do I mean by instantiate? I'm going to create an object of TV class in my CLI. Okay, so I'm going to create a constructor called TV. I'm going to module export that, and then I'm going to call these two functions depending on how I parse my Node.js, parse my CLI. And then I'm also going to have my logging done over here, or the console part over here. Okay, that's the high level what I have in mind. I might shift this console log over here. We'll see when we get to that part. But I think this might work. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. So for the next, let's see. For the next, there's a diagram over here. So I think so. Yeah, this is how it looks like basically. And a lot of you guys were kind of very close to it anyway. Okay. So for the first 15 minutes, please go ahead and just code the CLI. In this one, you are parsing the information. Let's see what the README says. And these are the instructions. So create the CLI.js, run this with this, and then handle the online arguments. All right, handle the two commands, show and actor, and just make sure they are parsing good. It actually doesn't do anything, all right, because from our architecture, this module is the one that does the more work, right? My CLI is just getting the input and then parsing whatever the input is, kind of making sure that the input is good, making sure these spaces are accounted for, and all that stuff. Okay? Remember some of the methods from the previous class? Okay? Array.slice and join and all that stuff. So go ahead and code the CLI for like next 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And this should just parse the input. Yes?
So then in the CLI file, would we not have to require FS or Axios?
Not at this point. We are on the second phase of the project. We are just coding this part. And the CLI, the role of the CLI is just to get this thing and kind of parse it, right? Because this parsing is itself a big deal. Why? Because we have spaces in between. How do you tell that this is my command and this is the show, everything after that, right? So that's the parsing part. Just do the parsing. Just do maybe console log when you're able to parse it for now, and then we'll come to the next part. Okay?
I didn't know. That, I already knew that. That part I did too. So, let's see.
It's a search instance. This was a cruel game for me to play with and not. Oh my god, I feel so bad. Actor. No, it's okay. So
I have also stacked out the instructions.
Welcome to America.
Oh, look, there's a constructor. That's what I was like. I started writing that, but I wasn't even thinking genres. Well, I guess they are displaying all of that there. You know, they got all of it.
No, I'm 26.
And see that, I didn't know how to do that with the other one. Spotify. I didn't know how to do that.
That was Jason.
How it works.
I learned that there one time, yeah. I learned once. Oh, there it is. Oh my God. That's what I was thinking. I was like, 'cause they're making over to this is their constructor. And this is their constructor.
So that doesn't.
You know, this might be good because anytime someone sends me like a link, it takes like 10 minutes.
So then.
Yeah, I'm very, so yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
It's you that has a problem with the class. I feel like we do it. No, just set it. At least I know. So my version of the process stuff. I just install it into a piece of
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So that whole, yeah. So that whole constructor is function. So all of that stuff, like getting the data, appending it, showing it, is all one.
No slides.
This is saying, okay, run that function, which is get all that data. It's based off of whatever that you put into it. And then it's saying, okay, so if there's nothing there, show which is yeah, so it just defaults. If that's not true, no, well, it's saying if you don't, if it's not true, then do that. If there's no term, then it just automatically goes. Oh, okay, I guess. So if that's not true, that's like, if search is not true, there's a solution. That's what I thought because I'm saying, crap. Because one of them, I thought that's what that's saying. It's not that's why when you created it, like when I was doing my actor show, I thought like you can use those parameters in other places. Because since we're always an export to this file, that's how it's used. I don't know. I'm not worried about it.
Yes.
Oh, I was
Oh, they have it.
Right. That is the case. We don't even the whole project is on different. This we are divided into phases, so I would prefer to do like a pair programming or like a single person programming. So like one person types in and then another one.
Yeah, just as
Oh, right. That's what architecture was. Oh no, this was that's why this architecture was done. You have to divide it into different files.
that's how it's done.
Yes.
This is what it's like. Back.
Right.
I don't know. I just know what the rest of the
That's it.
Bye. It like gets me stuck. I mean, it's literally like what's happening over here. I was like, okay, I got it. And then before I was getting that as two objects, like object. It's Polish shit.
I don't know. Oh, is that the folder?
I always do it here. Like, I'll go through the activities. They don't always have the solutions. I'm not gonna like I go through it and it's helpful. Like they usually do it at the end of the week, like out of Wednesday, and then they'll push all the solutions for the week.
Okay, so this is like.
If you have it, I have it. Literally, all I have to do is go in here and like get all the others.
So I'm going to start with in creating the package first. Package name. Call TV app version. Yep. Description. This app gets TV shows and actors. Okay. Entry point. It's going to be CLI.js. Let's call that. Don't need the test. I don't have a TV shows, actors. My name, license is good. Yes.
As long as you put it in that folder, I just put it in like a habit in there. I didn't even know it because this was like
We'll create a CLI touch. CLI.js.
Yeah, I think it goes there.
yeah, you should have the
Very different.
If I download it, it'll always ask me that.
Here is it.
Yeah, because it does with the security. I lost stuff. Crap, what I done? Oh, like that's.
So is this Google Ads function? Yeah, it got added.
default search type. So default term.
So command is node CLI CLI and then show name.
0, 1, 2. So the first thing, term is slicing maximum. Because like I have this right here, that'll, if you type anything in, it'll capture all of that. So I don't understand why they have this extra line. Why don't you just do one and then, oh, maybe they have broken up two.
So my second argument is the search.
Oh, you are fucking
Select search option process.rb is true.
So then see that I'm like, okay, well then why does that one? Why would
This
that
will
one
give me
if I have like multiple? So it's like
true.
Require
give me show name or actor
So we're just so the actors
let search
It's all messed up.
process.rb Again, you're not working on the TV, right? And you're just working on the system. You're working on okay, that's good. Yeah. Oh, okay. How do you know
So yeah, that was all weird.
Can you run the node CLI? If I say
So, I mean, it was like partway done.
So that is supposed
So
to
you
be.
were basically just putting your like the name.
right. At this point, you need to know.
Yeah, that's still a very good point.
No, it's the same thing.
Just fitting will come.
Searching the show.
What information? What do you pass into your the next part?
Right, so then
So it did.
Because over here you will straight out, then you will call your own.
So my
What do you tell me? So your right? How do you tell which one I'm supposed to call? So I have dot slice 3. So and then I'm going to join everything on a space. Okay. If my search term is show, then console log searching for TV show. Okay. Else log searching for TV. Just for testing, let's go ahead and log our search term.
Oh, it's that one. 13.
Which the function is
Let's say show
Oh, that's what I forgot.
okay. Oh. If the search option. Let's try that again. Okay, searching for TV show. Or if I type in searching for TV actor. Okay. Let's see if I just type in show. Okay, let's do the bonus part now. You did the bonus part?
in my head.
Yeah. Let's add some error checking. If my search term is empty, so if my search option is null, or I can also use the short form and just say not. Excellent. Okay.
Oh, now I see why.
And then search option is equal to show. Okay. And same thing if my search term is empty, I'm going to give it search term as what is it?
There's no
saying
drop.
that
It's just
you
game.
can put an if statement inside that if statement to be able to also take into account whether your search option is still show or actor. Because you know, say you search for an actor, but you didn't put anything in.
Yeah.
It would.
So what's going to happen if I put in search option? Oh, so this is just checking if I don't give a search option. Right? If I don't give anything, it will default to show. Right. And don't give a search term, then it will just search for this thing.
So if you put actor and nothing,
Right, it was,
actor for Game of Thrones.
yeah, that's what it will do. So you can add a search term for actor also and make sure that. Is that what you have?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm asking.
Okay, yep, you can do that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everybody good with this one? Okay, so we'll start the next one, and this one you're going to implement the second module, I think. Let's look at the, oops, this one. Okay, in this one, you're going to create TV.js or whatever you want to call it, okay? And then you're going to use the Axios module to get the information, all right? So it kind of already lists what you have to do. So they're suggesting you use the tv.js as a constructor, and then it should have two functions that I was mentioning: find actors and find shows. Okay. Complete that function, and then you will be calling that tv.js module in your cli.js. Okay. That's what you have to. So the instructions are kind of helping you navigate in the direction that I was showing you. But if you guys have a different way of doing it, please go ahead and do it. Okay. But the instructions are saying create a next module tv.js, make it a constructor, and then create two functions called find show and find actor somewhere at the bottom. Okay. And then get that response, console log that response in this. Let's see if they want us to be logging the show. In this one, you are just at the end. Once you have done the console logging part, then you go ahead and use fs module to append, create a log.txt and put all the information over there. Okay. Again, please go ahead and read this instructions and then create the next module.
Because we only needed to run one screen to make a new object.
And Nick has slacked out the information also. Go through that, discuss as a team, and then start working on this one.
Because this function right here, that's not so you find actors.
So at this point, we are only implementing find show. Let me make sure. Just do find show. Don't worry about find actor right now. Just do the find show. So this will take most of the time, and find actor would be easier in the next phase.
Let's see. No, this you did something extra. You make a log over there. Yeah. I'm trying to. Did you have? Oh, what else do I need? I do the everything from the JSON. That's what I did, yeah. That's what I've done. With the Oxios.
I mean, it's not.
I guess it was. Where did this go? Okay, that's really weird.
We don't have any.
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to show there. So
It can be a
Oh, wow.
So I
the
showed
constructor, just so that you guys kind of get used to the exercise. Otherwise, you're right. You don't need a constructor. You can create a function.
Well, that's
Again, that's
JavaScript.
Yeah. Again, this is just a solution and kind of help you the next week.
No!
Which is
Why doesn't it work?
But again,
You're active in there?
Don't say
no,
that.
not just Spotify. So again, you're right. You don't have to use
Oh, okay.
Oh, you don't have to use a constructor. You can do it. Admin code, add restrictions.
Exactly. Assuming that the constructor function is something.
Ball walker.
It kind of just puts everything in one big thing. Because you will have a constructor, and then you within the constructor you'll have two functions, right? Find, actor, show, and then what do you do? In your main file you will say
I don't know, like I literally click
Uh,
out
this is
and
what
then
it
like the node module.
you will say TV, and then you will say TV dot
That was weird.
find show, and then call. That's all. I mean, that's the second approach. Or you can do just make two functions and module dot export everything. And but this is just because we are on the constructors phase. So it takes account your Node.js knowledge, your package information, your constructor, and your module dot export. So that's why everything is. It's a good practice to know how to use it. That's all.
Just synthesize. I don't care all the different elements.
Yes. Yep.
I just didn't know what it is, but
Should we?
So I think we're going to want to handle.
That's only way it makes sense to me.
So I think
So let me just create a TV.js. TV.js file.
I just want to see what though, because this is on the other file, but I think because references, I should be able to show it. That's referencing it, so I think what I should do.
Otherwise, I don't know.
yeah, so that's one of the reasons because like the only reason I did this was because there was no show. Gave it a show.
Yeah, it's just to parse it.
Okay, it's just.
It's the only thing I can you know.
Oh, exploit this.
It's not having an error, so I mean, it's better than an error. Somewhere.
So yeah, let's see. Yeah, put it inside. Actually, where is it? Oh, so add code and search the keys.
Yeah, that's important. Where do you see that?
So go to tv.js, go to line number 37.
Oh.
It's less than
Oh, that's why. Okay. customers. This is right here. So it just has to be like that. 'Cause this is getting all the stuff.
So we were done with access. So what we do is we have to call the URL to the access. So we have to post the watch. Right. So we're saying if you got TV made, blah blah blah.
Well, because it'd be like similar to this, because this is the function, this is the response right here, and then it goes JSON data. We could probably use that similar response.data. I'm sure it's probably the same thing. And then just look and see. But it's the same thing. It's just it's for an actor instead.
It's basically the same exact thing as having for the show. So we're just using the information, but just having parsing it for the actor. So it's almost the same thing. So you gotta get JSON.
Right, but for now we are just implementing show right now. We'll do actor in the next one.
We're
You're going to do it both?
So this is just show. You don't call us out.
30 minutes are up. I want to see both of them.
What do we do? What's the bet?
Huh?
We got it. What's the bet?
I know.
I'm not a betting man. Let's talk about it first.
So this is all we have to have that
So I'm gonna
So literally we just copy this part. Well, it's the same thing because it's literally that, and then we just have to change our.
You also got one thing for the counselor as well. So for the objects, we have to match up just for
So create a constructor. Create a constructor.
We're just trying to make sure we're
Use the convention. Create a constructor. And then just export this constructor out to test it out module. Exports. Okay. And this has one function.
If you think about it, though, you don't even have to. You can make
Find show.
It's like $4 a year. You give
This dot find show function. Find show invoke. I'm going to test this out, so I need to include this. Import tv.js. Let tv is equal to require /tv. Okay. Create object of tv. Let tv is equal to new tv. And let's go here.
Not have First of all, I'm not getting into that right now, okay? Because I enjoy Mel Gibson a lot, and I don't want to get into your kid. Hell yeah. There's certain people, if they are in a movie, I'm going to watch it. If Mel Gibson's in that movie, I will watch it. It's going to be entertaining.
It's like being the opposite of Nicolas Cage.
Dude.
If I see his smart face, I'm done.
I can't even say that. Because he's another guy. He's in it. I know it'll be entertaining. It's going to be weird.
Ghost Rider.
But he always does the same thing.
Define.
I just wait for him to do it in his movie. Go on in 60 seconds. Yeah. I can't ever forget him.
He just has no emotion.
Sports.
Birthday, gender.
I can't believe that sometimes.
Do this before bed every night. Touch yourself, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Where? Well, they were accountable.
Well, we just want to wrap our heads around, like what it was that we were actually doing.
So how do you call this function?
So this isn't even.
Gender.
This is a definition, right? How do you?
So you should have two. So CLI.js, hopefully you guys at least think about it. So we're grabbing input and just
That's a good start. That's
So if you can at least get that down, then depending on whether it's an actor or if it's a show, that's where you throw in some logic saying, show do this, it's an actor do this. Now, to do this part of if it's a show, if it's an actor, it comes from TV. So you create a constructor, it should have two functions in there, find actor, find show, right? And you have to export the whole TV object in order to use it in your file, right?
That's the module.
Listen at your regular one. So
Just like that. Exactly. Because you have to slice it because recognize the pathways to arguments for
Wait, one part.
I'm talking about for like the good community. It's all like that.
Are you going to use those?
It's going to be argument.
So when we set dot whatever equals, whatever from the parameters of the constructor, right? So when we do, if we did, so does it make sense to pass some data into a constructor? So think about it this way, right? So we have two functions defined for TV. We have find show functions, and we'll have a find actor function, right? Since we have two functions that essentially do what essentially it says that it does, would it make sense to pass data to the function itself instead of the constructor? That's who's the answer.
Yes.
So I'm working on the show one. So
So here's the thing.
call
Because
the find show
is not really doing anything else.
Method.
Like if you were to pass in parameters to TV,
How do I call this?
so it
TV
wouldn't make sense.
dot
We're only calling one
find
function
show.
depending on the regardless of the parameters that we pass it over.
Oh,
So and we only have two functions here and nothing else. It doesn't make sense to pass in parameters to instructors in this case. So what we can do is we can create a brand new TV offset, right? var TV equals new TV. And once we do that, then we get find show and find actor available through the TV offset.
So for now, let's go. I'm going to test this. If this works,
Then we can pass in the
node
parameters
CLI
here as
show
opposed to here. And then the function itself will handle the info.
password. Okay.
So you completed the Leary sums, right?
No,
So the did you guys start on it at least? Okay.
I
So
started on it, I just got it.
So a good example here. So in Spotify, you have to pass in something into the constructor, right? So you pass in your API keys, right? So the reason that you do that is with Spotify and you don't do it here is because with Spotify, each request you have to pass in your API keys in order to authenticate, right? So it doesn't make sense to have 50 functions and then each function you have to pass keys in, right? That's where the constructor comes in, where you pass it into the constructor. Spotify saves your API key as a variable and then it references that variable along with all the other function calls that they show. So in this case, since we're not using any data globally within TV, it doesn't make sense to pass it in. It makes sense to just use the function itself,
you wanna try it?
and then so if we weren't using the TV as API, for example, and we were using OMDB, it requires a key, right? Then we can say, hey, as
So
a
I'm able to
parameter here,
export my
give me your
function
key,
constructor and
all
use it.
the keys,
I tested that out, so this is working. The connection. The next thing is I need to pass in what am I searching for. So I'm going to go ahead and modify my function. I'm going to pass in the show name. Okay. And this time I'm going to go ahead and just console log the show name just to make sure I'm getting the right information back. And then I'm going to pass in the show name, which is called search term over here. So when I call this, I'm going to pass in, this would be my show name because I'm inside my if for show. And let's going to console log, make sure this is working. So node CLI show, let's call it this world. So I'm getting back, so this is working. Let's test the spaces one.
Eating stuff. Name was undefined, so I'm just trying to.
Okay, so I'm getting both of these search terms back, so this is working. The next I would have to do is implement the Axios part.
Okay.
I just put
Okay.
Because I was like really lost.
Well, with Leary, you should realistically only have one file. So it's not going to look exactly like this. All your code is basically going to just be in one file. So you shouldn't be exporting through the method. Oh, for the keys. Okay.
Yeah, for the keys. Like, I almost put it on main page. I almost gave it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what I call it. Share. It should match whatever.
Okay. Well, if you want, I can show you during break or after class on how to do this piece for your keys. It's really no different from doing it this way. So you'll basically just be exporting your keys object, and that's it.
They were saying like something's not installed. You know, keep installing.
Yeah, that doesn't help me. I can help you. Like I said, I can help you
If you want to stay or something.
Spotify. He helped me make an error go away.
Makes me good, huh?
Does. I'm telling you, you have no idea.
Are you guys getting this though? Or are you guys out right now?
I mean, I'm just trying to
Okay.
get the name. Like, I don't know. We're looking at the JSON like,
So I need Axios.
it's just, I've seen like a couple different ones, so I'm just trying to figure out.
So
you getting data back already?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting other ones.
You'll never call it out.
Axios. So let Axios equal to require Axios, and this should fail because I don't have Axios installed. No CLI. Okay. So let's go ahead and install Axios. Axios. Okay. If I run this again, this time it is successful. So this means I've got my package, and my package has Axios also. Okay. Alright, so I don't need this.
Buckle up, you're gonna see a lot of that moving forward.
Okay.
Then like in real life you
Call Axios.
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, you should get comfortable with it quickly because the boilerplate for React is very small.
So what do I need for Axios? It's a get method. So Axios dot get, and then I need to pass in something, and then the then function. Okay, let's format this. And over here I need to pass in a URL. And my then function is going to get my response back. So function, function response. Does it return an error also?
do you think that
Depends on the way you're doing it, but I'm pretty sure it does.
Check that out.
Yeah, so
After what? Oh, dot catch. So I don't have to worry about this. Catch. Okay. And this is also a callback function. There. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to console log the error. Something happens, and that's my catch function. Alright, so for now, I'm going to log the response to actually see what comes back before I can start parsing it. Now I need the URL. Okay, so I'm searching for a show. Let's go back here. Show search. And then the example is this / search and then the show name. Okay, that's pretty easy. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create a variable called var URL. Okay, and I don't want GERS, I actually want the show that comes in over here. So I'm going to concatenate this show name. Okay, and that should give me what I'm looking for, URL, then function, and it should console log something. Right. So let's go ahead and test this out. Node CLI show West. This one. Okay. So I get all the information back. This means my Axios module is working. I'm getting the JSON back.
That's the whole JSON object?
That's the whole JSON that is coming back. But I don't need the whole thing. So what do I need from here?
I was looking at that right now.
Oh, the data. Okay, they have a data object over there. So let's go ahead and do this and see if this works. So I say node CLI show Westworld, and the data object has the information that I'm looking for. So it looks like it's returning me an array.
So does it pull like different?
What is it?
Is it pulling multiple shells?
Oh yeah, looks like it's pulling multiple shows. Good catch. So what we need is a single one. So we need the next one. Okay. So what's the difference between this and this? Single search. Okay. So let's go back and change this to single search. Good catch. Let's go ahead and so node CLI show. Okay, now I'm getting a single show back. That's good. And then, so that looks good. What do I need from this? I need a name of the show. So let's go ahead and console log the name of the show. So let's go ahead and save this to a variable so I don't have to keep saying let call it JSON data is equal to response dot data. So this is working good. I don't need this anymore. And my JSON data dot.
I know, but like, I guess how do you get to that screen from like the from like TV, whatever TV names? I did. Oh, TV's. Oh, it's gonna be different though because I feel like.
No, CLI show.
No, I mean like so right there.
So I need the.
How do you get to that screen? Oh, that was a node one. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, that's how. TV is one. Yeah, I didn't. Oh, you turned me off.
Show dot name.
Like, how the hell did I get there? And now I can't even get back.
And then genres. Where's the genre?
But even on here, I'm like, I can't be fine. There's like objects in objects, not.
Let's see.
I have data. Going over here is going to be really secure. How many transfer protocols can you get? All of them. All of them. Some secure, some not. You got them all. Like I guess a couple things, like the artist and the song name, on like the same thing over and over.
Oh, that's better. So I have. I have name. Genres as an array.
That's why. Yeah, that's why. That's all I was getting. And I'm like, this is not working. I'm glad I created that new variable and stringify the response.
Name.
Stringify is your friend.
Show name. Then I need the genres. So genres is an array.
No. MR.
Um, but I can just combine this, so I can say John.
Actually, it's not yet.
But maybe you don't want to break up something that's already.
Yeah.
It's called JSON data dot genres dot join on space, so I can get all of these. Okay. What else do I need? Ratings. Let's go ahead and get the ratings. Ratings. JSON data dot ratings. Is that what it's called? ID, name, type, language, schedule, rating dot average. Rating dot average. Okay. Next thing is network name. Network name. Network name is JSON data dot network dot name dot network dot network dot name, and the last thing is summary. Summary is JSON data dot summary. Okay, so let me go ahead and remove this. I don't need this anymore. And if I console log, I should have all of these. Okay, I have my show name, genres, ratings, network name, and summary. All right. Well, we'll take a break. We'll come back at 8:15 and start the next phase. If you are not able to complete this, I have the code up over here. Please take a look at it and let me know if you have any questions. And we'll start the find actor part. It's going to be very similar at 8:15. Okay. Okay.
No. Well. You guys get it?
You may have used her for inspiration. Who knows? Who knows? There was like no public page that had Drake.
What is it? Yeah, at 8:15.
Drake jokes want me to talk about the terms. There is a curse.
Because once it and from there, I just did a Google search how to insert it in my. Remember, right? It was like exclamation point, square brackets, which is where like your alt text, your description of what it is.
He is
And then,
he did because he was from Jersey.
parentheses, the link, the relative link to so it needs, the file needs to be in your repository. Yeah, but I need to update mine because I changed it to work for Wire.
I just.
Wire modules. It's nothing close in terms of but
Yeah,
like
I just, I didn't.
fetching from Spotify will be exactly the same. So if you want to look at those points,
You know, the, doesn't have but I just don't.
Whoa.
this one, does anybody else has good ideas? Because I know, so that, do you know how a good way to make like GIFs from a screen recorder? Because the whole way I know how to do it is do a screen recording from that and then upload it to a service like Cloud Convert, where they can convert the video into a GIF and then it like that, but
Yeah, I personally haven't tried it, but if I had to Google, I'm probably sure.
Like mine doesn't. It does, but it's like it just frustrates me.
if I
No,
chose.
no.
Such a good song, I should listen to it.
Thank you.
It's not like you, it's Mama Russian. It's not Mama Russian.
Yeah, it's just not my last name.
Without my core from it, it just becomes more sounding things. Trapiani. Trapiani. Let's do it. I'm there too. I'm gonna look at your resume.
It's like Mama Russian, you don't check. I'm like, don't ask.
What I do, focus on what I'm doing and help.
Yeah, he might know.
I've realized there is one true helper. There's a little deer in the face. Oh God, we love you, man. You're so good to us. What? You also talking about. I assume. Huh?
Not a helper.
With us. Okay, he doesn't need kudos. He knows it.
Okay, but above us. Okay.
When he looks at us, that twinkle in his eye, he's like, "Boop, boop." No, but thank you as well. All of us.
Question for you about the JSON coming back. We were doing what you did, and it wasn't working. But I noticed that what's being returned is an array of multiple shows.
Yes, yes. So I was
Does
looking.
yours handle
No,
that?
yeah, that's what it was. And Geoffrey pointed out that there are two APIs. If you use a search, then I switched to single search because I just want one.
Oh, that's why. I'm like, I
Yeah.
swear we're doing the same thing. Why are we getting
So we switched to
more
from
complicated
search to
JSONs?
single search.
Because I made it work actually. It's
You
fine
have
now, but I
loop
had
through
to
it.
say the response data 0,
Yeah, the first
and then
one.
I also had to put dot show dot everything to make it work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only difference.
I feel better. I'm like, I swear I'm looking
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah.
Like, get ignored, and I was like, how do you get this file after you create it? Because I don't know what to do when you're still creating it. You can't catch it when you create it. I created the folder.
Let's see.
You are not going to second.
Oh. I keep forgetting to send you my resume. I'm gonna send it right now.
That's what it is.
Yes.
The name of an actor.
It's really not bad. And I think it'd be easier than people think to get a front end job if you have the basic fundamentals down.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people think it's a lot harder than it It is. As long as you are confident when you're talking
Right.
and like you said, try to explain your thinking.
Yeah.
Most people, at least like from what I've seen, it seems they want that. They want you to at least have a grasp and want to learn more.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I feel relatively comfortable. And even looking at jobs, I feel that I could easily get like a front end job to start out at like 70, 80K easily. If you're confident about what you're saying.
The only thing is just make sure you know the concepts that we have studied, the book concepts. So what happens, I know you know how to code it, but when I ask you what is a closure and in the interview you're like, well, I know it, I can code it,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to explain it. You know, the interviewer doesn't know if you really know it. Okay, I can find somebody who can code it, I get it, but you know,
I got that.
I know the
book
system
that
is
he
kind of
has.
broken, so you know, just make sure you know the concepts,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to cross that hurdle anyway. I know once you get in the job, you'll be hardworking, you will get there. But the thing is, the person who's hiring you doesn't. They are also taking a risk, right? They don't know you would be successful or not, so they have set of questions. They just want to make sure you know the basics of JavaScript or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I think, truthfully, for me, it is helpful. Like that book that Bear has is really helpful because it's just repetition and just seeing it over and over so you remember. Because a lot of this, I don't even care if I'm getting great on things or not, but I'm remembering it, you know, and I'm understanding.
Right.
I'm understanding and just. I
So
have to step
for
back.
example, I ask you, can you code a callback function? You go, yeah, I know callback functions, and you pass in this. I can do it, but can you actually explain what a callback function does and what is it and how do you use it? That's where, right. That's how the other person knows that you actually know something, because you know, I mean, there's no good measure to know what the person knows or not. That's the filter that kind of takes out people who actually know stuff versus people who are just like winging it and trying to.
Yeah. And I like this because people want to learn. Like started this job, and let me tell you, I wanted to punch this person in the face because it's like sometimes in marketing, it's not about like collaboration. It's like, oh, I think you know this better than me, so let's like fight, you know. And you're kind of like,
right.
And I've had that a lot in marketing things. You know, people are not about let's do the job and it's great. They're like, oh, you know more than people. I don't want to help. I want to sabotage you. You know. So here we go. But but I'm gonna send it to you right now so you can see it. It's not like great. It's not horrible. But I tried to just make it one page, simple, and then keep digging my brain in JavaScript so I can talk semi-intelligently.
Yeah. All right. So now you guys are going to complete the actor part. So we did the show one. I'm not going to code the actor one now. It's very similar. Please go ahead and code that part out. The only thing I will code is the log.txt part. So remember in our exercise, we did the show part. And right now it's doing the console log. Right, we need to use the fs module to log it. So that's the only part I'm going to do. For the show, the actor is same. So please go ahead, look at the code that we have for show, and then try to code the actor part. Okay, completely on your own, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so take like 30 minutes or so to complete the logging part and the actor part. All right, I coded the show part. The only thing I'm going to add over here is how to save it to a file, and that should be it from my side. So you know, kind of follow the similar pattern, complete the actor part on your own. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be going around, help you guys with the actor part. Okay, it's going to be very similar. So the last thing is we have to log this information to the file. And for this, you guys are going to use the fs module, right? So before you start using, let's go ahead and import fs module. So I'm going to say let fs is equal to require, and is it called fs? Oops. What am I typing? See. So if I use the write file, it's going to keep overwriting it, right? Every search, so I need to use the append. Excellent. So let's go ahead and do the fs dot append file. Okay. It takes in 3 parameters. The first is the name of the file. The second is the data, and the last is your error function. So if there's any error, let's go ahead and complete this one. Log error. There's some data that needs to be passed in. So the first is my file name, data, and the last one is my callback function. So let me go ahead and format this. Okay. My file name is called log.txt, and what am I trying to save? So I'm trying to save all of these things. Okay. So this won't work. So I need to kind of combine all of these and then save it to my file, right? So what would be a good data structure to kind of combine an array? That's a good one, yeah. Use an array, put everything, all of these in an array, and then save it to that file. That's a good one. So let show data is equal to, Jeff is suggesting an array, and I can just save all of these in my array. So my first index would be this thing, right? Second would be this.
Does the comma in your console logs that just add a space?
Yeah, it adds a space. That's all it does. Yeah. And then ratings. Add this. Then I do the network. Okay, and the summary. So these are all the indexes of my array, and I'm adding those. Let's add a space so I can see some things. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 indexes in my array, and then I can show data. I can join this also. Oops. I think the genre is on comma. You can just log the show data or join them on a space or something. Let's see how can we.
Would you be able to join with a new line character?
That's a good one. Where do I add a new line? At the end over here?
I don't know. I was wondering if you could dot join and then have it in slash n.
So slash n. Okay. Let's go ahead and try that and see if this works. So when I run this, I should have something. So node, CLI, show, Westworld. Oh, no. What is null?
Yeah.
So I'm getting a null. What is null here? What am I console logging that is null? So I did a summary. Summary is good. Let's go back and see if there's. Oh, it's adding. Yeah. What is this null? Now it's going to bother me. What is this null? Maybe it is in my API call here. Let's see what am I logging here.
Search term.
Search term. So I come here, I do this, I do a TV. So searching for TV show. Then I should see. What am I getting now? Find show.
That's the same one. All that stuff.
No, it shouldn't. It should only call this if I have written this correctly. Do I have this correctly? Append file. The first is the file name, then the data, and then if there's any error.
File name, data.
So there's nothing over here. So I call this method. It says show name. Let's go back to our terminal. So I'm getting my searching for TV show, show name, genres, ratings, network, summary, and then something after that. What is that? Show name, response, summary, something after summary.
Where's it? What is happening? Is it an error?
Well, it just says no. So I'm trying to find out what am I console logging that is no. Well, the error should only be called if there's any error, right? Or do I have the method incorrectly?
Is the catch?
Well, do I have this written correctly? You can make it more clear, but I doubt it is there. Well, let's see. Could be this. I don't know. If it is this, then I have written this incorrectly. Yeah, I'm trying to just see if it is the error.
To see if that pops. Yeah.
Right. Oh, there it is.
Oh, now which one is it though?
Let's say error while appending file. Okay. And let's call this error while fetching from API. Okay, and what is the error? This is the error. So you see error while appending file. So this one is returning null. So do I have this method correct then? It shouldn't say anything.
So append file, and then you got your text in there, show data.
What were you saying, Jeff? Do add a if statement?
I had an if error.
Okay. So this is a good one. This will take care of it. If there's an error, so then go ahead and. So looks like this method is called whether there's an error or not, and then we have to kind of figure out if there's any error. Yeah, then do it. Otherwise, kind of ignore it. Yeah, that's a good one too. So let's add a else and say content was logged successfully. Okay. and then it says continuous. Okay, so you see how I troubleshoot it. I just didn't run away from my problems and be like, oh, I don't know what that is.
I'm scared.
I don't know what that is. I'll just ignore that. No.
That was very helpful though, seeing you do that.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah, you get
Yes.
undefined, you don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had done that follow that exploits equals to right?
So instead of doing
That's a little more that's good. Yeah, that's fine.
it would just be exactly what we
You got
got.
to define.
Instead of
Yeah.
just console logging it down, we would just use it.
Remember from the previous, we have to create an object. So module.exports can take an object. So you will say equal to an object, and you put in the name that you want to give it to the function. Let's say so find actor, and then the actual function name, and then find show, and then the actual function name separated by comma, and then all right, so for next 15-20 minutes, look at this code and complete the actor part. All right, should be able to get the data and then log the data also.
It just
But the undefined, like it does it, but I don't know why it's saying undefined. Because it should be the same thing. You're just getting the data from
So
a different.
do you know which line it is saying undefined?
so I think
Come on.
so we'll just since we worked so hard to make it a pretty
How did I just break it? Why do these not work?
I might want to just remove either the top.
It doesn't make sense because like I had these out,
Otherwise, like, in between them, we'll have like.
and then it was working. And now it's not working.
It's double line means close.
Which one you wanna remove? So then I have to take it out.
It matters.
Yeah. Okay. So then it's like so it logs it in here. It's undefined. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing. I'm just getting it from the same line. Here's the code. So like name is Jason, birthday is gender.
So we do console log this one of not over here. This is an array. You can't console log inside it.
I'll be fine with that. You know what I can do? The first one, this is the start.
Undefined.
You're not getting the data back. So something here. Is your URL correct?
Yeah.
Calling function correct?
Well, dang it, okay. I guess I'll
Console log the URL and make sure that that's the URL that is generated.
I see what you're
Console log the URL first.
going back to small steps.
Yep.
So
So it should be the
no, I'm not gonna run any more. We're going to be doing this.
Yeah, so it's working. It's weird shit. Which one? I just put it right under there, like under the Axios function. Just did the console log URL. So like under there, though. So that way when you run it, it'll show up. It doesn't make I don't get why the same it's the same thing. We're just in a different one. Why is one undefined? What has changed? Because look, I mean, he says he's like console log URL, make sure that's working. Okay, it's not working.
And it puts
That's
the
no longer on their side, but like,
but then the response when it gets back is undefined. Why? This is it. There's only one.
and then
Most of
like I started this stuff.
There's no other way to search person.
Yeah, it's like I want the other one. So you just take it down. I know.
This stuff console
And then we would just be doing is the
Right.
yeah. So just from in here we just need to do the whatever file.
It's Braveheart, but it's more brainwashed.
I'm not sure.
No, just put it there because you want to console log.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, so if you want it, it should pop.
You go home. You go home and you say certain.
I don't want the node CLI. Node CLI. Yeah, so it works, but you gotta put in like actor or something. Because if the actor works, then you put actor.
That's how I feel.
At least log it.
My
boss.
But is that it? Like,
I'm just not gonna touch it. The cards by that was Roman's idea.
I don't have everything in there.
Oh, I know why. No, wait. Oh, because I didn't change the. I didn't change
Oh
the.
yeah, you gotta change it.
I didn't change the API.
Do you find the issue?
Yeah, I can't stop my.
I mean, it doesn't make sense because like when I console log, you know, around it's working.
The URL is correct.
Yeah, and it puts in all the parameters in there. Just
Then what's the when you console log response data, you get something back. So you have your URL, right? Axios. Then you have your .get method,
yes.
and then you have your .then method. That you are getting a response. And if you console log response.data,
Let me see.
and it has to be, there shouldn't be any typo. I think it's response.data, exactly like this. So is there? It still says undefined.
Let me do one more.
And they were like, what? And then it took 5 people and was like, no eyes. And I'm like,
Oh, something else. So now it's in an object, so it's pulling something different.
What is it?
But it's saying that it's person, and then there's an object.
Right. So,
But it's just
but when you're getting this back, okay. So this means you're parsing it incorrect. This is all this code is correct. This means so response.data. Understand how it is. You are parsing it incorrectly, probably. That's why.
But what? Okay, the thing that I don't understand is what would change from.
No, look at the documentation. I think it's returning an array instead of. Let's see. Let's look at the documentation and see what they're saying. People search. That this is the one that you're using, right?
Yeah. So.
Which one is it? People search.
People. Yeah,
Okay.
People. People.ida.
Search through our database. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open this in Chrome. And you see? Do you see what the issue is? It's an array. You're getting back an array versus an object. So you have to parse this array to get that
Why would they do that different? It's so
right. Because there might be more people with the same name. That's why they always return.
that is true. That is true. 'Cause I did
So-
a single and it-
So for simplicity, what you can do is you're getting 10 items back. Just pick the first one, and that's what you use. So instead of all of these, just pick the first one, and it should have the same information about the person. So from the array, pick the first index always, and then get all this.
0 and then go. Okay.
Yeah, that's what you need to do. Again, step by step. So then now you know what the issue is. So do a data and 0 and console log this to make sure you're getting an object, and then go ahead and start parsing it.
Alright, that was very helpful.
Yeah. So look at the data that you're
I
getting.
never thought someone was
The bottom one is the TV.
Okay, let's see.
So then above it, it's supposed to be different.
I guess just assuming that they're going to be the same
Right,
because
right.
the calls
Yes, exactly.
are
So
not
that's-
good.
Right.
Yes. No, let's go like this. Boom. Boom. Okay, now it's working a little better.
No.
Yeah, it's really hard to see sometimes when we're all this way.
Now it would be done.
Yes.
So this is what you can do.
Is it working?
I think so. So I just want to make sure this is so right here.
I just like we did it. Why isn't it saying?
No, it almost
That's what I was questioning.
So for some reason, console is trying to search.
Oh, that's
Yeah, for some reason it's trying to search.
First.
but I'm like, I put it in the show. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like why did it work?
Working?
That was a great learning experience. Holy crap. You actually got it. No, still pushing the right thing. I just was not pushing the right so I know what
Okay, what's the starting point of this? It's not easy to
No, it's going to be
what were the requirements? How did you code this? These were the requirements,
So
right?
you just gotta do like that. Just make JSON data response.
Yeah, so the requirements are these two. So those two are the arguments.
Right. So
Yeah, so the code this will be on your so council law.
oh yeah, that's okay. I'm saying how do you run your application?
What?
How do you run your application?
Every application you're going to do it with two arguments. The first one is going to be either accurate string, and then the second one is the value that you
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is outputting everything. You just need the
So it's not council law.
what? You don't console out the whole thing. You just want oh yeah.
So that's the reason why it should be.
Okay. Yeah.
Thinking about it, what the various parts of it, just getting it all. Well, this is all copy and pasted from the email. What's it called? From the
okay.
yeah. No, I'm just trying to see.
Oh yeah, yeah. That looks like it's good. Yeah.
Alright, it works.
Don't console out the whole thing. Just console out what you want. Yeah, it looks like it's right. Working.
That
Got
was
it?
so helpful. I never did console on everyone. I don't care. I move forward. Okay?
Or use the debugger part. Remember I showed you guys debugger, which everybody probably forgot. The inspect
Words
process.
like stops, right?
Right.
The error one is.
That's the other way. But most people use console. I use console.
It's easy. I mean, it is easier.
You always think that I'm taking baby steps, and I'm going to take even smaller steps. Most steps.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
So what do you know how to do? Counsel.
I'm a counselor master. Okay? I got errors, I'm gonna find them. Counsel I'm like the guy. You can't stop me. Okay?
Oh god, it's such a good. It's such a good. I see it.
This
Well, the weird, no, so what's
It's a
you guys finish up?
yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Well, I just can't get I got the country and the URL, that's what I'm working out, so I can
Okay. Well, you're down to the easy part now.
yeah, it's the one that you have like, wow.
Well, not that, but you see your access phone, you're using it. You're getting a response in your callback function, but you are also logging outside your function, outside your callback function. So you have an array outside your callback function. You will always get undefined zero. Yeah, so this code has to go inside your endpoint. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, now you have no errors.
Yeah, person.name is one. Yeah, that way it always goes to the first one.
Oh, this way. I can stand here. Yeah, that helps better.
Person not working. The country one is weird. It's like an object.
I tried to just do the zero.
Yeah, but that's like an array. So, well, if you're trying to get an object in an object,
How do you get an object?
because the country is like an object within the other object. So,
How did you get to your data object?
would it be the same? Just dot notation?
Yeah.
But it doesn't
You guys are
work.
kind of forgetting everything. Yeah, you use
Oh,
dot
but
outside your dot
person.
notation, right?
Oh.
Dot something, dot something, dot something.
Oh,
You guys
if
are
this
breaking my
works,
heart.
if this works, man. Like, hold on. Okay.
That's your project one.
Hey, okay.
Please don't tell my interview this.
What is it?
Please don't tell my interview this.
All learning.
He doesn't know. He's not
Okay. Yes, there's no air.
What is it?
Yes,
I can see
it's
a
a person.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Person. Yeah.
You did that go
Gosh, that was. Okay, so this is right now. URL, everything's weird.
How to get it to where it had no errors first.
Oh.
The general.
Everything's
Go achieve.
It all works. Okay.
So
Okay.
We're having an issue to where we're like
Unread. No, it works. He's born in Lebanon. Who is that?
I don't think we
Hey, so is that good? So, that person, that country, that name.
Yeah, buddy. So I didn't think it would be like that. Because it was not. I guess it's not an option. It's not a The only thing you need to worry about is a race. Right. It's like just being all right. You have to select the first one, and then go and not.
I thought we needed to go to the beginning.
I don't like it.
And I was like talking to them, and they're like,
I don't like it at all. So print this email with the console, and it all worked.
And we get back running.
Right. No, I didn't.
And then it's pulling up the Ajax call for our actor as opposed to our
Didn't say the names, just said all the
how about you?
What's Mr. Bean's real name? What? It's a good question.
Rowan Atkinson.
Rowan Atkinson. Black Adam, bro.
I wasn't joking.
Johnny English.
No weird things.
Michael Jordan used to work. What's he the simplest more? Michael Jordan basketball player?
The secret is revealed. You
That's
do
Michael
not.
B.
You do not look down.
What?
He's a little midget.
I knew that. Like Michael B. Jordan's a midget.
You didn't know Michael Jordan height. Michael Jordan's like 6'6" or something.
Michael Jordan's pretty tall.
He's a regular dude.
He took over Wakanda.
That's real. He's coming back to life, so you can't kill it.
Yeah.
Hey, it's not working. They closed it.
Very fine to fix.
There's a.
You need missing a page because it's says and then so you just keep past the due date and all of a sudden it'll be like, what's this? So that's how it goes. So that's what you just bought me a video game, Mom, Dad. Take that. Yeah, put that in your shit.
Jason, oh, so wait, those ones have to be. If those ones are wrong, it won't work. You should cancel those ones out first and just see if the main one works.
YouTube,
like,
doing what I want.
Yeah, because that's how I was checking to see. You gotta comment those down. That's what kept messing me up too. Like I was trying to do.
Oh yeah. How you?
Okay, let me. You saw him. He was skin.
There you go.
Yeah.
That one I know.
Well, no, you gotta add person.
So what did you put on your?
That one, like person. Gotta be like.
So you are exporting using Team.
Oh, this?
What is new?
I was gonna say, if you, there a way to slide us
So the new team, they should match.
It should.
Okay, his birthday is February 9th.
It doesn't know it should match. So you are importing.
What gender would we
It
do?
should match exactly what it is. Change it to uppercase.
He's undefined.
He's.
Let
that man be a person.
Import something.
So is this?
Just kidding, Michael B. Jordan is a male.
was required.
It's not defined. Okay, it's a
Right.
new world.
QBGS has your constructor,
And what's his country?
right? So you need to use the same.
It says Wakanda.
You have new key because I declared it. I declared this. That's why. That's why this is not common.
I think the authors.
Name.
So in my code, I'm calling it TV. That's why I'm using new TV. If you are calling it something different, then you have to use this name. These two names should be the same.
Just like this Spotify.
Just like this one.
Yeah.
Right.
We could do something that's stupid. You have one has capital Spotify, the other is Spotify, lowercase.
So the new one is actually the constructor, and this is just importing the Spotify.
The parse body thing you're using, is that JSON?
Yeah.
What?
You got it?
JSON thing?
So that's a JSON thing, but I was using
yeah.
using a for
You
loop.
know why? It's like we do it from Wakanda.
To loop to this.
He's the guy from Black. He's the guy from Black.
Oh yeah.
He's the guy from
Wakanda.
Black.
Yeah. I thought the other Michael Jordan. Oh yeah, I got it.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan. You should have said Michael B.
That's what I said.
Oh, that's what you said. Oh.
Okay, I said Michael Jordan.
It's the same.
They're the same person.
Michael Jackson, you know.
Michael Scott.
Michael Scott.
Michael Scott.
George Michael.
They're all Michaels.
All the Michaels.
Whatever, like first index of
I think this will work.
It's actually funny.
There was so much extra
Trying
stuff,
to
like
like
doing
change
just
his name
on data.
because he hates Michael.
Just like
You can't just change your name. Call me Mike. Just make a Michael API.
Yeah. Make a Mike API. Every single Mike. Every single family has a device.
Every single yeah.
Every single Mike.
You have the for loop as well.
Because every family has a Mike.
Yo, for real.
Not like multiple.
All right. In 5 minutes, we'll start the last part of the class. So let me know if you have any questions with the current exercise. I think people are kind of coming to an end. Most of the groups. You guys got everything?
Oh, I got her name. I got her birthday.
Oh, sweet, awesome.
Aw, yeah. It logs in the text.
Oh yeah.
So just like the
It's all pretty.
Well, we got something.
I like it.
It was
I
the.
got Eddie Murphy in here. I got Fran Drescher. I got console log in it.
I tried to.
I feel good.
What country is this?
Yeah, because it's not, we're not looping, so.
I think
Just get rid of it. Just get rid of
he's American. How come Sylvester Stallone, bro?
Good.
You spell his last name right?
Yeah.
I don't know, what's it called? Irwin,
What did I just do?
No, maybe he's not a
Yeah, I mean,
No, you gotta be a some kind of
I thought
even vegetarian.
You destroyed me in Call of Duty.
I would have thought he would have been something. Let's see. Mel Gibson.
and then the log.
He's been in this TV show. That's weird.
Hey, this is what it's Amy Schumer's daughter.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Marlon Wayans. Because he wasn't in that. Okay? You can't just be confusing black people.
No. I wonder if it's too many. Yeah, Terry Crews. Wait, Terry Crews was born in 1968.
We bloody. That was in my head. You better find that show. Let me search it.
3 hours, 52 minutes.
You don't find nothing?
I wasn't searching.
Oh, yeah.
When I didn't put.
Oh, I don't have a console for that. I just made one for that. I want to see if it worked.
Now let's try it.
Do that. Makes you feel fancy.
Still giving the shows. And it says cannot read. Oh, because it's saying
Mine, truthfully, I added so many extensions, like I can't even format my
I mean, it might just be
code anymore. It's just really weird.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's kind of depressing.
I guess I could do it.
That's what I'm
It's like
Okay, it's definitely Charles. You're just not speaking to us. I wish you would be a little. Is there a?
Oh, it was
our show with our no, it actually should be our friend.
Terry Crews is older
I
than
don't
Snoop
trust
Dogg.
myself.
What?
Very
You need to stop smoking weed. That's
what
what
it's
it is. Damn. That's what I'm saying.
Hello, my name is.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to say that. No more weird revelations at the end of the day. Okay?
Ice Cube's older than Snoop Dogg.
what people is.
She's still kicking.
That's not a good look on like smoking. Jeez, buddy.
Oh, Caesar.
That's some Snoop Dogg was old as hell. Thanks to weed.
How old is he?
What, Snoop Dogg? Snoop Dogg was born 71. Terry Crews was born 1968.
Really? Ice Cube younger.
What's it called? Ice Cube's older than Snoop Dogg.
That's just
Well, they came out the same time with the music. Snoop Dogg was older.
First of all, let's stop knocking
Dude, I
old.
feel like Snoop Dogg was 40, 10 years ago.
All right.
Where y'all been?
Any questions on this exercise on the second part? Can I get it?
Yeah, it was.
Everybody good?
It was difficult, but it made sense.
Okay. Right. So that was the purpose. I said every week we study concept. Toward the third day, usually is like everything coming together. For Node.js, it was a little bit earlier, so that's why we didn't have anything last week. So this week, at the end of the second week, we had this whole exercise. We kind of combined all the concepts of your modules, right? Constructor, package.json. I don't know if anybody created that, but that's how I started the coding part. So you have everything over there. And then I have my Axios in my package JSON or whatever. Okay. So there's just one more exercise, and this is completely shifting gears. We'll do this together. This is about the callback functions. We have already seen these. This time, I just want to kind of revise the concept before I move on to the next week. Because we will be dealing with a lot of callback functions in the coming week. Okay, so what I have over here is, okay, so this is, take a minute just to read what's going on. So this is the file that is given to you guys. Okay, we'll code this together quickly. So this is the code that let's suppose the interviewer is asking you to do. Okay, the first is these two lines. So we'll start with the first one. So write a function that logs a message, then executes a function argument. Okay, so the first thing is, let's break this down. The first part we have to do is we have to write a function. Okay, write a function, and we know how to write a function, right? We declare a function and then give it some name. Okay, the second part is that logs a message. Okay, so this means in my function definition, I have a console log that I'm logging a message. Okay, now I'm logging a message. What does this tell me? Where is the message coming from? What is message? It's a parameter, excellent, right? So I'm passing a message in my function, right? And I'm logging that message, right? That's the first part. So write a function that logs the message. I could hard code that message, or the better way is I pass in a parameter which is message, and then I log that message. Okay. All right. The second part says then executes a function argument. And what do we call a function argument? What do you mean when I say function argument? When we are coding, what does argument mean? It's something that we are passing over here, right? Okay. Now, if my argument is a function, what do I call that function? Starts with a C. Callback function. All right. So basically, I need to write a callback function. Okay. And then I need to pass that function over here. Okay. Now let's see how do we code this. Again, write a function. So let's start with a function definition and logs a message. So let's call it log message. Okay, this is my function definition, and I'm done with the first part. Write a function. I have a function that logs a message, and what did we say? We can pass in message and then log that message. Okay, this was the first part. Then executes a function argument. So I need to pass in another argument, which is going to be another function. So let's call this func, right? I can call it anything, but this tells me that it's going to be a function for me, all right? And if this is a function, how do I execute a function? Right? That's how I call a function. Everybody clear on that? So the message is saying then execute a function argument. So this means I need to pass in an argument which is going to be a function, right? And how do I execute a function? Just by parentheses, right? So I know this is going to be a function. I'm going to execute this. And this is basically a callback function. Remember, we've been using the callback function. So behind the scenes, this is how the callback function is actually written. We have that dot then, and then we have a function response. So this is what behind the scenes, something is going on over here like this. Okay, everybody get how reading these this message we kind of come to this code. Okay, let's try the second one. Okay, this time write a function, okay, that runs a function argument if its other argument is truthy. What does truthy mean?
It's not falsy.
Extremely right, but extremely unhelpful. He's right, he's not wrong. And if I ask what is falsy, he's going to say what is not truthy. So that's why I didn't even ask what is falsy.
Certain values equate to like true.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like on a default kind of. That's why it's truthy, not truth.
Right. Did everybody get that? So in JavaScript, you saw in the previous exercise we had if search is not something, right? We had if not search. So this means search is a variable, right? It could be undefined, right? It's not a boolean. It's a string, basically, in our previous code. So we call this statement, we cannot, since it's not a boolean, we cannot say it will be true or false. I mean, it will be true and false. So instead we say truthy. That's like a more generic name, because since this variable is not boolean, so we are saying it can be truthy or falsy. That's the only difference. Yeah, truthy.
So it's not boolean, it's a string?
Right. It's a search is a string, right? Remember from the previous one?
Yeah.
Search was a string, but JavaScript has the ability to tell you if this is no, this means it will say false. If it has some value, it will say true. But since it's not a boolean, we call it truthy and falsy. That's the difference between those. Okay. So let's come back to this. So write a function that runs a function argument if its other argument is truthy. So how do I start this function? So my first of all is my function definition. So function What do I call this function? Truthy? Alright. Truthy function. Let's call that. Okay? Now what do I need to pass in as parameters over here? So that runs a function. So I need to pass in a what? Yeah, I need to pass in two parameters.
Yeah, so the first one is
So what it is saying, if
less strict. A less strict equals.
less strict equal, what is that less strict equal?
Instead of 3, it's 2.
Oh, okay. No, but I cannot pass in these things in my parameters, right? I need to pass in.
True and false. True and false.
Right. So yeah, I need to pass in two parameters, and what it says is runs a function. So this means it's going to run a function, right? It's going to do something like this. But what is func? I don't have func, so I need to pass the function first, right? Okay, so I pass in function first, and this function is only going to run if the second argument that comes in is truthy, right? So I can call it truthy, or let's call it bool, right? You can call it anything. So this means that if this thing is true or truthy, then only run this function. Okay? So then I need an if statement, if bool. So I don't need to worry about is equal to true, because this is a short form, right? This will still work. So it is saying that if write a function that runs a function. Okay, I'm running a function if the other argument is truthy. Right? Now I have this could be a string, this could be a number, it could be anything, right? I don't know, right? But if I do this, JavaScript has the ability to kind of find out if it is undefined or null. It's going to evaluate this to false, right? If it has a value, then it's going to give it some value and it's going to execute this function. Yes.
So once you declare the function,
Okay.
you can use it as a parameter again, because that's what you did there.
Which function? This one?
Yeah, the func one. 'Cause didn't you use it up at the top?
Okay, it has nothing to do with this one.
So you're just using it as a
It's a why not? Because this is a function. Remember the scope. This is not available anywhere outside, so it's already gone. So forget about this one. We are on this, so this is the scope of this function. So I'm using func because I have the keyword func over here. I can change this to fun. What will happen now? I have to change this to fun.
Okay.
Okay, or function to whatever, if that's confusing. So it has no link with the top function. Again, why? Because it's scope, right? It doesn't exist outside those curly brackets anyway. Okay. All right.
Great album title.
All right. Let's.
What's that smell? The funk.
Yeah, there you go. Well, actually, in Android and Kotlin language, they actually call it fun. It's not funk or function. They call it F-U-N.
They're
Fun.
trying way too hard to make it fun.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not functions, it's functions.
All right, let's do let's do the next one. So this one kind of looks complicated, but takes some time. It's not. It's just a lot of words. It's literally like 3 lines or maybe 4. So write a function. So give it a try. Write a function that accepts a function argument. Okay, that's kind of similar to the previous one. So I need to pass in a function. Okay, and a value. So the signature or this is what we call the signature. The top line, the definition is exactly same as this one or this one, right? Because we are passing in 2 arguments. One is a function and one is a value. Okay, did everybody get the definition? So function, let's call it not that difficult. That's my name. Kind of running out of names. I don't know what to name this one. Okay, so I need to pass in a function and then a value, right? Same definition as the previous ones. Okay. the next one, and returns a function. Okay, let's stop over there. This function in the body should return a function. Okay, and how do you do the return? Return. Okay, so return. It should return a function. Is this a function, right? So it is saying just return a function. You can name this function, call it something, and do it. Or I just use the anonymous function syntax over here. Why? Because it says returns a function, and this will return your function. Okay? Everybody still getting it?
Yeah.
Right? So it says return a, and how do you return a function? Return keyword as anything, and then it has to be a function. So just create a function over here. Okay? Let's do a third part. Returns a function. Now, what is that function doing? It is returning the result of the executing function. Okay? So the first thing what you're going to do is return, right? It's going to return something. So I'm going to stop here. Okay? Now, what is it going to return? That returns the result of the executing function argument. This thing. So over here, I'm going to call this function, right? Whatever that function does, I don't know what it does, right? Whatever that function does, it's returning something with the value. What does this mean? I need to pass the value here. Okay, again, so I need to write a function that accepts a function argument and a value. Everybody clear on that? The two parameters. Returns a function. So this is my definition. I say return and this function. The result of the executing function argument. All right. So my function argument was this one. So I return this function with the value. So this means that this function is actually expecting whatever the value that is passed over here. So I call this function. I return whatever that result of that function is. Yep. It's just a wrapper around a function. Okay. So the purpose of this exercise is, when you are doing whiteboarding session and interview, expect that somebody is going to write some crazy statement and kind of see if you understand what's going on. Can you take a requirement and kind of code it out? That's what it is. Can you actually read the requirements and then come up with a code that kind of satisfies this argument? Again, most of the time it's not as difficult. You see only 3 lines of code. We just need to understand the return things. Right? These are the new two keywords from the previous one. And then you're just passing in those values. Okay? The last one should be very familiar. We've been using write file. Right? And do you remember the callback function in the write file? What's the callback function when you're using the write file? Write file. What's the first argument? You see? The log file name. So we said log.txt. Right? What's the second one? Whatever any data. Right? And the third is a callback function. Right? Callback function which gets passed an error. Okay? So JavaScript is, Node.js is littered with callback functions, right? And this was just a revision because in the next class, for Thursday, we are going to stop at Node.js. We are going to go into MySQL, all right, just for that class. So next class, take off your JavaScript hat and you're going to put on your MySQL hats. We're going to look at how to run MySQL, some MySQL queries. But the class after, we are going to look at how to communicate Node.js and MySQL. Okay, and callback functions is the way to go. Okay, again, so next class we'll start with MySQL. Please, I'll post some of the instructions. If you did not do the installation in your pre-work, please make sure you have MySQL installed on Windows or Mac, whatever machine you're using. It will make the class go faster. But I will still allocate some time for you guys to install. Make sure everybody has MySQL installed. Okay?
I do.
Who doesn't have MySQL? Just know,
Raise your hand.
you don't have.
Raise your
You don't
hand.
have. You do not have MySQL installed. It's okay. I'm just wondering how many people. Okay.
I didn't think I had it.
Yeah. Did he install it? Okay. We'll see. I'll send the instructions again. So give it a try tomorrow morning. Otherwise, on Thursday we'll look at MySQL. Okay. Now that's the end of it. Nick will show you the homework for next week. Again, that homework is optional, so you don't have to submit it. But it's a good practice if you guys are. It's on constructors. It will give you good practice. And then Troy, can you slack out the Node.js checkpoint? Please take the checkpoint, and then that's. Hold on. All right, give me a minute more. So after the introduction to homework, there's a checkpoint for Node.js. Take the checkpoint. Again, it doesn't count towards your grades or anything. It just as a measure how much we have learned. Troy is tracking out the checkpoint, and Nick will introduce the homework, and that's all for today. Okay. You want to open the exercise?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, you want or not?
Yeah. Do you have that? Just that the folder for the homework.
Oh, okay. Oh, the unsolved one or solved or something?
No, the solved one. The one that I'll go over with them.
Oh, okay.
Because like I had it doing some part.
So we are on.
Should be under 11.
Yeah.
11?
Yeah, homework. I think that's the one anyways.
Oh, the mouse is
not working.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, look, I got this. It made me so excited. Like I got something. But then I started getting crazy and adding stuff. So I'm like, I swear this has been this way for like 4 days. I came and sat here.
Do you have
Control Z?
Oh, I'm doing it right. Oh,
hang on just a sec. There was
yeah, well, it's truthfully when he said that time, like, if you get something that works, just fucking push that.
yeah.
Fuck it, just start like, this works, okay, cool. I can always pull this down and start over again, man. But once you mess it up, too bad, you can't come back.
Okay. For those of you who did the hangman assignment, I can't remember if it was probably assignment 3 way back when. So if you guys did that, then this should be fairly simple. But essentially, this homework, so you'll be using Node to essentially create, a hangman game, if you will. So basically, what's going to happen is you'll have a prompt. You'll be able to guess a letter. If that letter is correct, it'll fill in the letter itself. So you'll start with a bunch of underscores, and as you guess each letter correctly, they'll start showing up. For incorrect guesses, you'll basically just get an incorrect guess message, and then it'll display the word or display the current state of the word for each guess. So with this assignment, this will essentially tie into what we've been kind of working on for the past few classes with constructors. So if you kind of picture this as, each letter will be, essentially its own constructor, and then each word will also be its own constructor. So we'll have, 2 separate objects. That is kind of the direction we're trying to push you in terms of kind of solving this homework assignment. So if you guys look back at, for those of you who weren't here on Saturday, we did a few activities at the end of class that use multiple constructors, multiple files, and export them, and you can then require them and use them in in a separate file. So for the most part, obviously pretty self-explanatory. The instructions are down here as well, so it'll give you an idea of how we want you guys to kind of go about solving this homework assignment. So you will be using Inquirer in order to capture user input for all the guesses and stuff. And as I was saying, when we're trying to essentially get you guys to understand separation of concerns. So we'll have a letter.js file that contains a constructor which essentially represents the actual individual letter of the word. And then we'll have a word constructor which represents the word itself and the collection of letters that it contains. So important thing to understand here is a word can have letters, letters cannot have words, meaning that the letter constructor, you shouldn't be requiring anything inside of your letter constructor because the letter just literally represents the letter itself, right? So the word, we need to require letters because a word has letters, right? It can be, a collection of letters, whether it be 4 letters long or, 35. So, important to remember that. And then you'll have an index.js file that will essentially contain, the logic to your game and, how you want to code it from there. So I will say that, don't be afraid to branch out. You don't only need to have an index, JS file. You could easily create a game JS file, put all your logic in there, and use the index.js as, essentially a starting point to your app. So, which then will go to, game.playgame or game.endgame or whatever. So, just to give you, kind of an idea there. So, anybody have any questions for this assignment?
The letters is just the letters. It's like the words.
It's like how the students didn't have classrooms with classrooms and students.
Somewhat.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, this is optional, but still good practice. So if you guys, have time and want to do it, I would recommend that you do because this assignment will, definitely carry over into, a lot of real life scenarios, especially for, like an actual job. So this has really good, topics and concepts for you guys to understand. So I would highly recommend that you guys at least take a shot, at this assignment. So, cool. So, any other questions? So, okay, fair enough.
Do it. Get it done.
Just the checkpoint and we are done. Yes.
Are you gonna upload